Today's lesson is on solving systems of linear equations by substitution. So for number one, I'm going to solve a system of linear equations using substitution. So my system of linear equations is y equals 2x minus 4 and 7x minus 2y equals 5. In order to solve these using substitution, I'm going to take part of one of my equations and substitute it into the other equation in order to help me solve. So what I mean by that is if we look at our first equation, we have y equals 2x minus 4. I can take this 2x minus 4, and since I know that it's equal to y, I can substitute it in to y for the second equation. So what I would have then is if my second equation is 7x minus 2y equals 5, I would have 7x minus 2, and in place of my y, since I know that y equals, I would put 2x minus 4. And then I have that that would be equal to 5. Now I can go ahead and solve. So I have 7x, and then I have this negative 2, or this minus 2, that I need to distribute to everything in the parentheses. So I would have negative 2, and then times the 2x would be negative 4x, or minus 4x. And then I'm multiplying this minus 2, or this negative 2, times minus 4, or negative 4, and I get plus 8. And that's equal to 5. Now I can subtract 7x minus 4x, and I get 3x. So now I have 3x plus 8 equals 5. I can subtract 8 on both sides, and now I have that 3x equals negative 3. Divide by 3 on each side, and I'll have that x equals negative 1. Now I know what x equals, so I can substitute that into one of my equations and solve for y. It does not matter which equation I choose, both of them will give me the same result for y. So let's go ahead and just choose the first one. So I have y equals 2x minus 4. Since I know that x equals negative 1, I would have y equals 2 times negative 1, and then minus 4. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, so I have y equals negative 2 minus 4, and negative 2 minus 4 would be negative 2 plus negative 4, so I'd have that y equals negative 6. So the solution to my system of linear equations would be negative 1, negative 6, because I found out that x would equal negative 1 and y would equal negative 6. So what that means is if I plug negative 1 into either one of my equations for x, I would find out that my y in both of my equations would be equal to negative 6. Now let's look at number 2. I'm going to solve the system of linear equations using substitution. I have that x equals 5y plus 3. And I also have that 2x plus 4y equals negative 1. I can go ahead and use the first equation and substitute part of it into the second equation. In my first equation, I know that 5y plus 3 is equal to x. So I'm going to take 5y plus 3 and substitute that in for x in my second equation. So my second equation, I have 2x plus 4y equals negative 1. Remember in my first equation that x equals 5y plus 3. So instead of x, I'm going to have 2 times 5y plus 3. And then I have plus 4y, and that equals negative 1. Now I need to use the distributive property to multiply this 2 by everything in my parentheses. So 2 times 5y would be 10y, and 2 times the 3 is 6, so plus 6, and then plus 4y equals negative 1. Now I can add 10y plus 4y, and 10 plus 4 is 14. So I have 14y plus 6, and that's equal to negative 1. I can subtract 6 on each side, and I'll have that 14y equals negative 7. And then I would divide by 14, and I find out that y equals negative 7/14, which is the same thing as negative 1/2. Now I know what y equals, so I'm going to take this and substitute this into one of my equations and solve for x. So let's go ahead and use the second equation this time. So we'll have 2x plus 4y equals negative 1. We found out that y equals negative 1/2. So I have 2x plus 4, and I'll substitute in this negative 1/2 for y, and that would then be equal to negative 1. So now I have 2x, and then 4 times negative 1/2 is negative 2, so I have minus 2, and that equals negative 1. Now I can add 2 to each side, and I get that 2x equals 1, and then I divide by 2, and I find out that x equals 1/2. So the solution to this system of linear equations would be 1/2 negative 1/2. My x value is 1/2, my y value is negative 1/2. And now for number 3, I'm going to solve the system of linear equations using substitution. So I have 2x plus y equals 20, and I have 6x minus 5y equals 12. On both of these, you can see that I don't really have anything I can substitute in right now. So I need to solve one of my equations for y or solve one of them for x. Let's go ahead and take the first one and solve it for y. So I have 2x plus y equals 20. I can solve this one pretty easily for y because all I need to do is subtract 2x from each side. So I have that y equals negative 2x plus 20. Now, since I know that y equals negative 2x plus 20, I can substitute that in to my second equation and solve. So for my second equation, I have 6x minus 5y equals 12. I found out when I solved the first one that y equals negative 2x plus 20. So I'm going to have 6x minus 5, and instead of y, I will put negative 2x plus 20. And then I have that would be equal to 12. I'm going to use the distributive property for this minus 5 or this negative 5, so I have 6x, and then this minus 5 or negative 5 times negative 2x would be plus 10x, and then I have this minus 5 times 20, which would be negative 100 or minus 100, and that would be equal to 12. I can combine my 6x and my 10x, and 6x plus 10x is 16x. Then I have minus 100 equals 12. I can then add 100 to each side, and I have that 16x equals 112. I'll divide by 16, and I find out that x equals 7. Now I know what x equals, so I can substitute this into one of my equations and solve for y. So let's go ahead and just use the first equation. I have 2x plus y equals 20. I know that x equals 7, so I'll substitute that in for my x. So 2 times 7, and then plus y equals 20. 2 times 7 is 14. So I have 14 plus y equals 20. I subtract 14 on each side. And I find out that y equals 6. So the solution to this system of linear equations would be 7, 6. My x value was 7, and my y value is 6.